Kandamandalakaram vyaptam yena characharam tatpadam darshidam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Ajnanatimirandasya jnananjanam shalakaya Chakshurmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nice to have you all here. Thank you, Mr. Sajirao, for the introduction. I may not fully agree with something, but thank you. So, it's good that we don't have a particular subject today. Because when you have a subject, you're kind of caught by it, you're enclosed. You don't open up, generally. So it's good. However, let's look at the basic facts of life today. And when I say look at the basic facts of life, it's not just material or non-material, as things are. And from there, maybe, we can move forward. Plus, the question of whether spiritual life is meant only for one particular section of society, or is it possible for you and me? Like, do I have a special robe? Do I have a weird hairdo or a turban or anything of that kind? No, you can wear turbans, that's a different matter. I'm saying myself. Or is my neck full of Rudraksha beads? I look like you and me. Only a few days back I didn't have a haircut, so. So what I'm trying to say, that the spiritual life may be okay for any one of us, need not have a special category of aspirants or practitioners. The robes don't make a difference, the mind makes the difference. I can say this because, like many of you here, I'm myself a married man. I have 2 kids. Of course, they are grown up and married now. So I must have looked after them well to be able to do that, which does not in any way reduce from one's spiritual understanding. This is exactly what I'm trying to. In fact, I think if you arrive at this understanding, you might be able to even work properly in this world. Now, that's where I want to bring in the Bhagavad Gita, a very ancient scripture of India. But I think it's not, while we cannot forget that it is, the source is India, you can't forget that. However, I think it's a universal teaching. Because when Krishna talks to Arjuna, he doesn't say that this is meant only for Indians. Well, it was in India that it came about. But it's a universal scripture, it's for mankind. In fact, somebody translated it as the scripture of mankind. And it's very interesting that what you can understand in very abstract textbooks like the Upanishads and so on, not easy for everybody to read the Upanishads, I understand, are beautifully put into a capsule form in simple language, understandable by you and me in the Bhagavad Gita. So don't be put off by the Bhagavad Gita saying, oh, it's too complicated. No, it's very simple. Well, if you don't know Sanskrit, that's a different matter. There are good translations available. In fact, I'm ashamed to say this, that in the university in Berlin, there are 2 chairs for Sanskrit, and they're chaired by German. In India, we don't have a single chair for Sanskrit in a good university. This is the country where at one time there were universities like Nalanda and Takshashila. What's gone wrong with us? What happened? Anyway, that's a different question. So here we have the Bhagavad Gita, which itself says, I'm a little bit fond of doing a little Sanskrit, I hope you don't mind, because it's a beautiful language. The other day a Pandit came to me in India and said, I don't have a job. I said, why? He said, because I studied Sanskrit. That's the state. But it's such a beautiful language, even if you don't want to make it a religious studies, you can still study it. It's a beautiful language. Lovely language. Anyway, so the introduction to the Gita by Vyasa says that the Gita is the essence of the Upanishads. In fact, the allegory, the metaphor is that suppose all the Upanishads were the cows, C-O-W, cows, and if Arjuna, you know, the Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, and if Arjuna was the calf, C-A-L-F, you know what the calf does? It hits its head, the udders of the cow, so that the cow gives milk. And if Krishna is the one who milks it, and he says, that's the milk which the wise enjoy, meaning the rishis, and which is the nectar of the Gita. Now this in English sounds a little flat, but in Sanskrit it's so beautiful. Sarvo Upanishato Gavu, Dugdam Gopalanandana, Partho Vatsaha Sudhir Bhokta, Dugdam Gita Amritam Mahat. This nectar of the Gita. So, the Upanishads, the practice of yoga, everything is covered in this very concise form, but understandable Gita. Now, let's take the name of why I'm saying all this about the Gita, because this is where we started from. Where do we stand, and why do we want to be spiritual, and how do we proceed? I'm using the Gita as just an example. Now, the term Bhagavad Gita, what does it mean? I think many people know Hindi, Gujarati. Gitam kya hai? What is Gita? Song. And what is Bhagavad? The Lord. So it's Bhagavad Gita, the song of the Lord, let's say. Why song? Why not it be prose? Well, Krishna could have just talked to Arjuna. Why the song? Why is it called a song? Because music or songs sometimes convey much more than talk, more than just yapping away like me. The song, the sound of music conveys things in a much better way, because most human beings' hearts are sensitive to song, to music. I'm sure many of you, even grey-haired people like me, might remember some songs you hummed when you were in love, when you were young. Bina ka Geet Mala or something like that. So songs are such an effective way of giving a message, which is not merely an intellectual message, but a message of the heart. This is to be noted. These are not just mere intellectual exercises. They have to do with your consciousness, with your heart. Not the organ that pumps blood. I'm not talking about that heart. I'm talking about that heart about which you sometimes say, oh, he's a heartless person. So, this is the song. And you should also remember the symbology here, that usually when he is not, only once does Krishna take on the role of a guru. of Jagadguru, which is on the Kurukshetra battlefield. What did he do in Vrindavan? He was blowing the flute, playing the flute. And it was the sound of the flute that got everybody together. People forgot everything when they heard the music. People ran out of their houses at midnight listening to that sound. So, the music of the Lord coming through that flute. Now you should note that a flute is not a solid entity. It's hollow. Can you think of music coming from a solid stick? Can only come from bamboo. Why? Because it's hollow. And if it is hollow, then the air comes through it. And when the air comes through it, you get the music. Therefore, to understand the music of the Lord, it's good to clear all the muck from your minds and keep it hollow. Well, the yogi would say to clean the channel of the Sushumna and keep it clean, but let's not go there. Even ordinarily, if we can keep our minds and hearts open and free, in a way hollow, which means, you know why very often we don't, things of the heart don't touch us because we're so full of me, myself. When that is cleared, then actually you don't have to read the Gita. It's done, the job is done. The main problem is that people ask me, oh, you teach Kriya Yoga, is that a shortcut? Well, we had a retreat in Manila. I said, there's no shortcut. The shortest cut is to cut the ego into two. Impossible to do. Maybe shortest cut, but difficult cut. So, I'm going to tell you a small story, okay, before we touch the Gita. We have some time. Don't worry. This is something to do with the ego. It's a very interesting story. I'm fond of repeating it. I'm never tired of saying it, because it might help me also sometimes. Not sometimes, many times. Especially when you come and people take photographs, sometimes. You put it down. Watchfulness is so important. In fact, the Buddha called watchfulness vipassana. Awareness, watchfulness. It's very important. So anyway, this is the story about how, you know it, huh? You're shaking your head. YouTube. I'm saying that better than the YouTube is the music tube. Okay. So, apparently there was a guy who was an expert sculptor. He used to make beautiful images, sculptures. So, one day he was summoned to a temple to make a murti. What do you call that? A vigraha, or idol, form of, I don't like the word idol so much, because people have this, oh, he's an idol breaker, and things like that. All of us have idols. If you don't have God, then you have matinee idols. So, anyway, so he went to a temple, and the priest said to him, well, you know what? You don't have to make this for us. I said, why? Because in 3 months, you're going to die. I can see it. So he said, now this is a very strange thing to say, that I'm going to die. You are the priest, so you are supposed to be the agent of God. So tell me how to escape. What's the point of calling somebody and saying you're going to die in 3 months? A doctor could have said that. Now tell me how to get out of it. I said, okay. He said, very simple. You are such a good sculptor. They are 3 months ahead. Go back to your workshop. Create 3 or 4 images which look exactly like you. You're such a good sculptor. Same size, exactly like you. And at the exact time, I'll tell you the time after 3 months, the agents of the Lord of Death, Yama, in the Puranas, are depicted as coming on buffaloes. So when they come, this is a story, okay? I didn't see the buffalo. So when they come, they will come at the exact time to take your soul. And they won't be able to figure out which is duplicate and which is real, because you're such a good sculptor. Just stand in the middle of your sculptures and you're saved. Because once the time of the muhurta has passed, then you can't take the soul. So they'll go back. So he did that. In 3 months he made the images, about 2 or 3, and stood in the middle of that, and the time came for the messenger of the Lord of Death to come on the buffalo. Can you imagine what kind of people would ride on a buffalo? Anyway, so they came and they looked around. They had to take the soul in a specified time. There's a time frame. Once you miss it, you can't take it. They couldn't make out which is duplicate and which is real. They looked all the way around. By the time was past. Now you can't take the soul. So they went back. They reported to the boss, Yama, the king of Lord of Death, and said, "Sir, didn't work. No way. You couldn't make out which is duplicate and which is real. This guy is such a good sculptor. He stood in the middle." So the boss said, "You know what? I knew that you're idiots, but don't worry, because after 2 months, this guy is going to die again. So this time, before you go, I'm going to whisper a mantra into your ear. Take it from me and go and you'll find him." So he said, "Okay." 2 months later, since the priest told him, "Your death is coming again." So he did the same thing. He went and stood. He didn't have to make many more because he already done. So he went and stood there in the middle. And the agents came, passengers. Before leaving, the boss had whispered into their ears. He said, "This is what you should do. I know that you can't find the duplicate of the real. You don't have the capacity to do that. So what? Go there and just start praising his sculptures. Just do that. Don't do anything." So he came and they said, "Oh my God, it's so good. Oh, it looks so real. The skin looks like human skin, and the hair, oh my God, it's just like human hair. And it's so real, as if I feel if I put my hand under your nose, I might feel the breath. It's so real." And for about 2-3 minutes, the guy kept quiet. Then he couldn't stop himself. He said, "You know what? I made it." He said, "Okay, now we know which is the real. Let's go." So, when that muck is removed, then you can hear the music of the soul. No amount of intellectual acrobatics can do the trick. Well, you can study, understand, which is good. People who are intelligent think we should have some kind of a theory and all that. Good. Consider it a hypothesis. But according to the Upanishads, the one who is really intelligent very soon understands the limitations of his intellect. And beyond that, we don't know, we have to see. So anyway, so the Bhagavad Gita, it's like the sculpture's breath falling on. The Bhagavad Gita has 18 chapters. And each chapter deals with a particular subject, and each chapter is called a yoga. Arjuna Vishada Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and so on, Bhakti Yoga, and the last is Sannyasa Yoga. 18 chapters. If anybody plays golf here, it's like 18 holes out there. Slowly go. There's no watering hole, 19th, 18. And so let's start with this first chapter. Arjuna Vishada Yoga. What does it mean? Vishada, since it's a Sanskrit word, can be translated variously. It could mean dejection, it could mean sorrow, it could mean confusion, it could mean uncertainty, or you could put all these things together. Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So, yoga of Arjuna's sorrow, confusion, insecurity, indecisiveness, and so on. This is where it starts. I think that it's the general state of all people, all of us, who begin the spiritual journey. We have suddenly come face to face with sorrow. We don't know how to face it. We have to take a decision. We don't know how to face it. We're confused utterly and in sorrow. And then comes the question, oh my God, is there something more than this? Or is this all life about? Eat, drink, grow up, marry, have kids, die? Or is there something more? The question occurs only when you are slapped a few times by sorrow. If you always have the lollipop of happiness, then you'll never find this out. Therefore, all sorrow, the yogis do not discard but welcome and look at carefully to see what is the reason for this. Where does it come from? When it's discovered that there is no point in life when there is 100% happiness, 100% security, and 100% certainty. There's always something going on. And it's this sorrow that makes you stand up and say, hey, now what? What do we do? So this is why the first chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. I'm not saying that we should welcome sorrow. I'm only saying that when sorrow comes, you just can't sweep it under the rug, watch TV, or get spiritual with the bottle. There's a spirit in the bottle also. And then forget about it. Face it and see how you can come out of it. So, that's the first chapter. And then it goes on to Sankhya, which is the theory of all the world and existence and tattvas and how we are related to the world and so on and so forth. And finally, in chapter 12, almost near the middle, a little beyond, after the 9th and 10th, 11th, 12th, there is a beautiful chapter called Bhakti Yoga, chapter 12. Now, this question is usually, it comes into your mind, how come, somebody say, how come Vyasa wrote the 12th Bhakti Yoga as the 12th chapter? Why not in the beginning? Bhakti Yoga means yoga of devotion. Several people have several ideas about devotion. Something devotion is to do puja, okay. Something devotion is to sing songs, okay. Something devotion is to do kirtan, bhajan, okay. Something bhakti is having the feeling in the heart for having a glimpse of the divine, okay. There are several layers to bhakti. And there have been in the past great bhaktas or devotees who have said, I'll give anything in return, but I want bhakti. I want devotion. I don't want anything else. This is very rare. In fact, so much so that there are people who have welcomed sorrow and said, come, because maybe I will become more devotional. You know, in the Granth Sahib of the Sikhs, the Guru Granth Sahib, there's a beautiful statement. It comes from Kabir. It says, Dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein kare na koi. Which means, it's only when you have pain and sorrow that one thinks of God and does, oh God, help me. Even atheists sometimes say, help me. But when you're happy, nobody generally remembers. You might put some 10 rupees in the hundi and say, thank you, that's it. So there have been great devotees in the past have gone to the extent of saying, we welcome sorrow. I'm not saying you and I can do that, okay? When it starts coming, then we'll run for our lives. But, and I want to give you an example of a true devotee. Please do not imitate. It's not possible. Who really welcomes sorrow so that she can find the truth. And this was the great lady, matriarch of the Pandava family called Kunti. Kunti Devi, the matriarch of the Pandavas. So the war is over, the Kurukshetra war. And Krishna is going to Dwarka after the war. Now before going to Dwarka, he goes to say goodbye to everybody. People who are his own age, he hugs them. Watch out, Krishna is not standoffish. He hugs them. I'm not saying anybody hug me, please. I'm not like that. He hugs them. And those who are older than him, he touches their feet. Can you imagine that Krishna, who is depicted in the Mahabharata as a divine in manifestation, touching somebody's feet? Here if I am the general manager, do you think I'll touch the attendant's feet? No. I'm not saying you should. They might think there's something wrong with this guy, but I'm saying Krishna is Krishna because it's divine, there's nothing left there. So and then he goes to the matriarch of the family, Kunti, and goes down to her and says, Kunti, now I'm going to Dwarka. It's the right time. Do you have any request to make of me? If you have any boons to be asked, say it now, because I can grant it for you. Kunti says, it's a beautiful dialogue. Kunti says, look, don't fool me. Don't try to fool me. I know who you are. I know that you started the war. I know that you joined our party and won the war for us. It is enough. This drama is enough. I know you. So then, what do you want? Yeah, you ask me, so I'll tell you what I want. Bring all the sorrows in this whole world on my head. This is what I want. If you are the Lord, do that. Bring all the sorrows of the world on my head. Look, when I say that, it's a great encouragement. If you have one or two sorrows, don't get bogged down. Kunti says, bring all the sorrows of the world on your head. On my head, not your head. Why? Because then every minute I will ask for help. And how do I ask for help? I can't ask for help without thinking of you. So I'll think of you, I'll call you, and I know that when I call you, you will definitely come. This I know. So now, if all the time I call you and all the time you're with me, what else do I want? I don't want anything else. So what is the best way to do that? Give me sorrow. Even Krishna is taken aback. Thinks for a second, then he says, Tathastu, so be it. Now this is not easy. I tell young people who, they might read the life of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, who went before Kali and said, take everything away, give me your darshan. Don't say that. When she starts pulling the carpet under your feet, you get jittery. First the car goes, then the house goes. I'm not saying that this will happen if you become spiritual. I'm just saying. Now don't get frightened. And I have a car, I have a house. I'm just trying to present a picture of this whole thing, that we should think about these things carefully. And when I talk, this is what I tell people at retreats. I'm not offering you a word-by-word solution. I'm giving you food for thought. Figure it out. Because then it becomes your understanding, not mine. Okay. So, we are on the 12th chapter of the Gita, Bhagavad Gita. So why is it that it takes such a long time for Krishna to talk about devotion, the 12th chapter? The reason is, till the 9th chapter, you will find that there is a dialogue going on. I mean, most of the talking is done by Krishna. Thank God, otherwise we'll hear Arjuna's opinion all the time. So most of the chapter starts with Shri Bhagavan Vacha. There are some chapters which start with Arjuna Vacha, Arjuna said. And the 12th chapter is one of them. Okay, anyway. So till the 9th chapter, it's a nice dialogue between them. Arjuna is like a friend, Krishna. He's his charioteer. He's also his friend. He's also a relative. And they're talking on equal terms. Then in the 9th chapter, suddenly, to Arjuna's shock, in the 10th chapter, Krishna changes his tune. Suddenly, from all that rational talk, he goes to something that appears completely ununderstandable when he says, among the rivers I am the Saraswati, among the mountains I am the Meru, among the immovables I am the Himalayas, among the Munis I am Kapila. Arjuna saying, what is this guy? You were just now sitting near me and talking like, and now he says he's the Himalayas and he's Meru, and among the Vedas I am the Samaveda. Please note, not Rig Veda, Samaveda. Why? Because all the basis of music in our country, in India, comes from the Samaveda. Music. Raga, Shabda. In fact, there is a particular section of yoga called Shabda Yoga. Nada Yoga. Anyway, so, what did I say? MIT. Yeah. And so on. So Arjuna is a little puzzled. So what's happening? His so-called rational mind, which was now thinking in 1 + 1 is 2, is slowly being turned on his head. He doesn't know how to place this. What does it mean? He's a human being like sitting in front of me. And then he says, I'm the Meru and I'm this and that. So he just can't. Okay. And then comes the master stroke. In the chapter 11th, suddenly something happens and this Krishna has many heads. And there is a universal form and there's sound of thunder and light. So Arjuna has, the only thing Arjuna says is, I think you are the primordial Lord. He doesn't know anything else. He just hands Tavam Adideva Purushaha Purana. He says, I don't know who you are. I think you are the ancient God, the primordial Lord. Beyond that, he doesn't know what to define. That's when Arjuna's so-called ordinary logic is good, broken to bits, because he's left without anything. When he realizes that his brain is too puny to understand what he's trying to understand, and that perhaps when it settles down and becomes quiet, the truth might flash. Might. We don't know.